Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers preview. It's been a while. Last week, I don't know if you want to call that a preview, but it's been a week since the NFL draft has begun, and we're going to talk about that and more. As always, let me bring in the other two dudes on the show. Bryan Anthony Davis, what's going on?
Hey, Jeff, I'm glad to be here. Dave, you too. Glad to hang out with you guys. You know, last week could have been the preview because we're previewing a brand new Steelers team with 7 new draft picks. So I'm excited.
Dave Schofield, what's going on? How you doing?
Still trying to, are you guys still trying to catch your breath from everything? I mean, it's been a week since it all started, but man, that was just draft weekend is exhausting yet so much fun. And I really thought this year we had even more fun with BTSC, that we really tackled it throughout the whole thing by having our own little Zoom meetings going on. That we spent the time together. So I feel like it's been a while since we've done a show together, but I feel like I've got to hang out with you guys even more, although I haven't actually physically hung out with you guys. So let's get back to it.
Yeah, so last week was crazy. I have felt like I'm kind of back to normal. I'm back to on solid ground, so to speak. Can I just put Dave's big on disclaimers on his Stat Geek podcast? He was all about disclaimers. Can I say a disclaimer here for a second? And that is, it's been a week now. The Steelers picked 7 new players. Get over it. If you don't like a pick, I'm sorry. I feel bad for you, but you got to get over it. You don't like Kenny Pickett. Get over it. You don't like Mark Robinson in the 7th. Get over it. You don't like Conor Hayward. You know where I'm going with this. It comes down to the fact that we may not disagree. We may not agree we may disagree strongly with what the organization did last week, but ultimately, what are you going to do about it? Like, we're going to sit here and sulk and pull an Andrew Wilbar and complain and all that stuff? I mean, is that what we're going to do? I don't think so.
Wow.
Poor Andrew.
That was an epic tantrum. I loved it.
But let's get this super chat on the screen. Sean Manahan gives us $2. He says, Kenny 2 gloves, baby hands, going to lead us back. So that kind of leads us to the headline of the show. One of the things to keep in mind is we do typically talk about each draft pick 1 week at a time. We focus on that one player. We don't want to start this week. Why? Next week is the big schedule reveal on Thursday night, and we will be doing our annual. It always falls on a Thursday, it seems, and we're going to be doing our annual schedule reveal. We'll give our way too early predictions where I have the Steelers going 17-0, and it's going to be fun, but we're going to start the breakdown afterwards. So I wanted to kind of get a feel for what everyone, and I mean Dave and Bryan, and their thoughts on this draft class. And so I went in a little different route. I think what did I label? What did I title this? Small hands, bloodlines, and characters, I think. And I feel like that's kind of where we are here. So they got Carney hands and Kenny Pickett in round 1. Now after a week, it's tiny hands, yeah. So, which by the way, another disclaimer, another Dave Schofield disclaimer. People do realize that when the weather got bad, Ben Roethlisberger wore gloves, right? Like, people do realize that, right? Phillip Rivers wore gloves all the time. Like, this isn't abnormal for a quarterback to wear gloves. But anyways, what are your all thoughts now, a week later, after Kenny Pickett's been the pick? You kind of warming up to it? Still not so sure? Bryan, we'll start with you.
I've absolutely warmed up to it. I'm excited. And it doesn't have to be a blockbuster pick for 2022. Because the way they set themselves up in free agency, some people said, hey, this was a waste of a $10 million quarterback, bringing in Mitch Trubisky, and now you have another guy. No, this ensures your future, but also ensures your now. So 2022, you're going to be in good shape at quarterback. If something happens that Kenny Pickett has to play, maybe he'll have some time to season, or if he goes out and seizes the day and seizes the job, then you've definitely got your guy. You're not going to complain. I don't care about gloves. I wear gloves. I don't throw a football in front of thousands of people, but it doesn't matter. I don't even know whether I've got big hands or small hands. It doesn't matter. All I know is the sandwich looks good in it, whether they're big or small.
I actually think my hands measure close to Kenny Pickett's, because we went through that during the draft process when he was getting the hands measure. I actually measured my hands, and that was a big thing that we did one time. Anyways, Dave, week later, Kenny Pickett, he's the guy. I'm not sure what your reaction was. Everyone that listens to Let's Ride heard my reaction when the pick was made, which there was a little bit more to that than just the pick itself. I had to deal with the fan base. But still, Dave, your thoughts on Kenny Pickett?
It's funny because when they were asking, what's your immediate grade? I'm like, C. And the reason I said C was because I didn't know what else to do. If you listen to Stat Geek this morning, I'm going to end up repeating myself a little bit, but you're not going to see me with the reaction like the Andrew Filipponi or like that, or like the video I put in our Slack channel of all the, it looked like it was an entire youth football team going crazy over the pick. Or the Andrew Wilbar who's wallowing in pity on the floor.
Next to an Eagles rug.
Yeah. I'm sorry, people, it's an inside joke. Andrew didn't put that out there, and I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But at least we saw it. My thing is, you're not going to get that reaction from me, and everything to me sometimes is just kind of blah because I wait. I said it before, I don't fall in love with prospects. I fall in love with Steelers. So now, here we are a week later. I love every single pick. I do. And people are like, oh, that's just Dave Flip. No, I don't fall in love with anybody until they get to put on a black and a gold hat and go eat a Permane Brothers sandwich and all that good stuff. I wait so that way I'm not falling in love with someone wearing those other putrid colors that they could be wearing. And therefore, in the long run, I feel like I'm happier. You could say maybe I should, find someone and commit to it. No, I trust the Steelers so much more than I trust myself that's what we all really need to do, because they are the ultimate experts of the Pittsburgh Steelers, is the people working for the Pittsburgh Steelers, whether you agree with them or not. But that's me. I like to see who they want. I want to see who they are. I'm excited about all of them. I can't wait for the preseason.
Okay, back to Brian. Question at hand is, in a perfect world, and for the best possible result for Kenny Pickett, keep that in mind. Does he start week 1, or does he have time to kind of ease himself into things, even if it might mean he sits for the majority of this season? What is the best for Kenny Pickett and his future with the Steelers?
The reason this is tough is because it depends what the record is when Kenny Pickett emerges in 2022, if he emerges at all. So my ultimate answer is going to say 2023. I love the Pat Mahomes route. That seemed to work out. Have him hang out, because he does not have to get in right away. I have a feeling Mitch Trubisky is not going to be like a Ryan Tannehill, and he's not going to say, well, I don't have to help out another quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a Ben Roethlisberger and say, I don't have to help out another quarterback. I think if the team does well and Kenny Pickett, sits but absorbs and he gets plenty of action in practice, then it's going to be a success for him to come out next year. Even though we know he's the most pro-ready guy in the draft as a signal caller, you've got to think that throwing Kenny Pickett out week 1 is probably not the best for him, because we saw some success with Mac Jones, but I don't know if I'm still sold on Mac Jones, even though they went to the playoffs, the Patriots. So I would much rather him get a chance to absorb, because keep in mind, when Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, his stats were not amazing. He had that one amazing stat, 15-1. Well, actually it wasn't 15-1. I think it was 13-1 or 13-0.
Oh, because he didn't start that game. They lost.
Yeah. So, with that, you look at the fact that he was protected, and they have a chance to do the same thing with Kenny Pickett. If they need to summon him like they did with Ben, that's fine. But I think you've got a guy in the interim that can still lead them to the playoffs.
All right, Dave, I'm going to ask you the same question, and that is, what is the best for Kenny Pickett and his future with the Steelers? Is that for him to sit early or to play right away? What are your thoughts?
Okay, I'm going to tell a story, so buckle up. This is normally what you would get from Brian.
Someone send me a message when he's done. Okay.
One of the commenters on our website is also an umpire in my softball league, and I had a game tonight. He was our umpire, so he asked me a question. I had to give him credit. I don't want to share his name. Yeah, Mr. Zoot. The question he asked me, and I thought was a great question. I might be spoiling something for you later, Jeff, so you can still ask this. He asked me, he's like, all right, starts for Kenny Pickett his rookie year, over, under, and he put it at 4. My answer was, I want Kenny Pickett at 17 or 0. And you're like, whoa, what if he's hear me out. If Kenny Pickett's ready and he's the guy, get him out there. If he's not not that he's not the guy, but if they don't know that he's ready and they want to throw him in there the first week, the reason I don't want him to start any games is because he's only going to, if he starts, 4 to 8 games, that's probably because something went bad along the way, either injury or play. And I don't want to see that either. I want to see whoever the Steelers go with in week 1 do so well that they're going to stick with it the whole season, because that's better for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if it's not Pickett because it's not ready week 1, I'm okay with that. But I think he would be ready partway through the season if they don't feel that he's ready week 1. I just hope they don't have to call on him, because I want to see things going well.
Okay, quick yes or no question, and I'm going to bring up a comment here. Brian, do you believe that when Mike Tomlin says this is an open competition, that he's simply blowing smoke, or do you actually believe that he is being honest, that this is going to be an open competition? So open competition, yes or no?
No.
All right. Dave, same question. Do you think this is an open competition, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So Corey Eckenroth, who is a good listener of the program, member of the Ride or Die crew, he says, I think this may be the best thing for him, but if he's better than everyone in camp and practice, then why not? And that's what I kind of come back to, is that, is this a genuine open competition or is it not? Is Mike Tomlin just saying what everyone wants him to say because they just took a quarterback 20th overall, the number of the first quarterback and the only quarterback taken in the first round? Or is this actually an open competition? If it is, and he is clearly the best option, then he should play. But Brian, he said he doesn't think it's an open competition, in which case, even if he's showing out in the preseason and in training camp and in mini camp and every other time he has a football in his hands, then it doesn't matter what he does. He's going to have to sit behind, I'm assuming, Mitch Trubisky, Brian. Is that who you think it would be the starter?
That's really what I think right now. But with a caveat, let me go ahead and mention this. Yeah, if he shows up and he's absolutely amazing, sure. But I don't think it's set up right now. I think he has been brought in to sit at the beginning, but if he surprises, then it becomes an open competition. But I think there's a plan right now.
All right. Dave, go ahead. You want to say something?
Just because it's an open competition doesn't mean it's an even competition. Meaning, in order for Kenny Pickett to get the job, and that's what I'm saying that he can't, I think he has to show even more than what they would see from Trubisky or Rudolph, simply because of that, rookie coming right in off the bat, starting. Not that he can't, but it's a competition. And Tomlin said the right thing. He's going to have the opportunity, but it doesn't mean that it's an even competition. Kenny Pickett might have to score a 95, even if, and in order to pass someone like a Mitch Trubisky who's scoring an 88. If Kenny Pickett scores a 90, they still might go with Trubisky based on everything else. Trying to put some numbers behind it that was actually completely arbitrary numbers, but I hope you all understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay, last question on Pickett before we move on. And this is a question that comes from me in my heart because I love talking about quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger was my favorite player forever, and I'm a little excited for this. I honestly am, and that sounds really funny for a lot of people. I listened to the curtain call where I can't remember the guy's name that was a Chicago Bears fan.
Joey Christopoulos.
And he's great.
Yeah.
And he has a great insight because his wife's a diehard Steeler fan and she follows the show and all this stuff. And it's fantastic.
Nerds of Steel.
He is. Yeah, she loves the stat geek. But it's a situation where I listen to him and I'm thinking, man, for someone that's like a Bears fan, to hear me say that, well, I was a huge Ben Roethlisberger fan for 18 years, but I'm really kind of excited to see what's next. They'd probably say, you are nuts. We're just looking for that one guy to give us 15 years, let alone what you had for 18. but I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited for what's coming up. And I don't know, maybe it's kind of just like the unknown. Like there's something that's kind of enticing and exciting about the unknown. Bryan, do you share in that excitement, or are you kind of nervous, anxious about it?
No, I am so excited for this. I remember 2004 when the Steelers brought in Ben Roethlisberger, and those preseason games meant something because this was the new era. I remember sitting in my apartment by myself all week long, just listening to everything about the draft and realizing that I had to come to grips with the Steelers and Phillip Rivers because that's what was going to happen. Then sitting in my apartment in West Virginia, making my own steak sandwich with Oliverio peppers, sitting there watching this draft and seeing that Ben Roethlisberger was going to follow the Steelers. And when everything happened,
our show started playing on my phone. I'm sorry. I got an alert.
It's great. For the first time, that wasn't me.
Yeah. No, I'm like, why is Jeff talking to me? Sorry.
So I heard steak sandwich again. Now I'm really hungry. So, that everything meant something. And when Ben Roethlisberger wasn't starting, and when he came in week 2, the next thing you know, you hear Alan Faneca saying, hey, we're going to trust the whole thing to a rookie. And that was I don't know if there's any more magical years that you can think of as a regular season than that one, because that was like a dream. We've never seen that. The last quarterback to be picked was before Jeff was born, number one. And then Dave, you were either one or born that year. You 79 or 80. I can't remember. But
I was born 78.
Okay, 78. So Mark Malone, and there wasn't the excitement over those guys. So this was just absolute. This is really exciting because this is the start of the new era.
Dave, excited, apprehensive, anxious? What is it?
Oh, I'm with you. I'm excited. But I think there's a reason. And that is Steeler fans are a little bit spoiled.
A little?
But yeah, well, we're very spoiled. Well, in one way, we're spoiled if you think about it, is those transition times have always been good times. I shouldn't say always, have often been good times, especially recently for the Steelers. You remember Cower Power, his first year coming in and how exciting that was and everything. Even when Mike Tomlin came in, it was exciting. Ben Roethlisberger coming in as a rookie, exciting. Those big changes have been good, exciting changes for the Steeler fans a lot. So it's something good to be excited about. Just hope it works out again that same way. So I'm very excited. I'm very hopeful, but always got to throw in that cautiously optimistic.
Okay, enough quarterback Kenny Pickett talk, because after small hands, we went to bloodlines, but I'm going to skip bloodlines. We're going to come back to that in a second. We're going to go to characters next. Dave was talking about the Steelers Nation Unite video of all the little kids, like the youth football team going, woohoo. And then, the Kenny Pickett live in New Jersey. Kenny, you're the pick. Wow, he's emotional. He's with his fiance and his family. None of it is as good as one George Pickens draft party and his reaction to being drafted. Now, I have to be honest with you. You might be watching this, and if you're watching this live on Facebook or YouTube, I guarantee you've seen it because you clearly have some social media out there, and these pictures have been all over the place. It's kind of like the new Bernie Sanders, when he was sitting there in a mask with his arms crossed. It's kind of turning into that with the Steelers, with George Pickens wearing like the cold gear hoodie, like the hood thing, and he's I don't know. I put this out on Twitter, and I'm not the first person to do it. And I just literally said, every time I see this, I laugh out loud. Every time. Like if I'm in a bad mood, I will pull up that picture and laugh out loud. And the reaction in the comments from the fan base has been hysterical. Someone said it looks like a middle-aged dad that's watching the news in the morning to see what the weather is. I mean, this guy just got selected by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the second round, and he's literally I can't even describe it if you haven't seen it, but it is hysterical. I think this guy's a character. I think this guy has some edge to him. I think that he has some nasty to him. I did have a Baltimore Ravens fan. The tweet that I put out kind of went viral, and a lot of Ravens fans have picked up on it. And someone said, I've got the over under at 3.5 of personal foul penalties between Pickens and Marcus Peters the first time they line up across from each other. And I was like, I might have to take the over. But that is, to me, that was so funny.
Mhm.
And, Missy Matthews is interviewing him, and he had to take the hood down for the interview. And they showed the video of him being drafted. He's just standing there looking goofy in front of the screen. I'm sorry. It was hysterical. But George Pickens seems like a character. I want to ask you guys not so much about the size, not so much about the speed, the rehab off the ACL and all that stuff. You think that Pickens kind of brings an edge back to that room that they haven't had in a long time? Brian, we'll start with you.
Yeah, he's the Pedro Serrano coming in. You're
going to compare him to Pedro Serrano.
I'm gonna
bats for bats.
Yes, because he's going to have his own personality, and then after a while, they're going to think he's weird at first, and then they're going to be like, it's just George, and George is going to be doing his thing, but as long as he's doing it on the field. But you need that kind of edge. You need to have that guy saying, "Hey, we're not putting up with this stuff." Marcus Peters, you're next, buddy. And I can see that. Now, I think you're wrong about the over under. I think you just go straight to ejections. Those guys are going to be out of there just like that. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens in warm-ups. It's just like, all right,
yeah,
you guys haven't done anything yet. You're ejected.
The Joey Porter rule will definitely be enforced, and whenever they play each other, the Ravens and the Steelers. Someone in the live chat, Corey asked, maybe he has Joe Boo somewhere. Like, if he's Serrano, if he's Pedro Serrano, is Joe Boo on the sideline? Like, that's a good question. Dave asked you about Pickens, him being a character, him being that, bringing that edge. Deontay Johnson doesn't have that. Chase Claypool, not really. This is different, Dave, isn't it?
I just want him to back it up on the field. That's it. Be that character. That's fine. That's great. Be different. Be that one that, marches to his own drum and all that. Just back it up with good play on the field, and Steelers Nation will fall in love with him. Absolutely.
Do you mind the trash talk, Dave? Do you mind the trash talk? Because he talks a lot of trash. I mean, he has since high school. I saw a video on Twitter today. He was in high school 7-on-7, caught a ball over someone. He's drawing at some parents on the sideline, telling them to get their popcorn. I mean, that's what this guy is. I mean, and the parents drawn back, and this guy, he's got that edge. He's got that Some people don't like that. I'm asking you what you think.
I like it on the field. You don't need the bulletin board it. Not that I'm a big proponent of one way or the other, but I mean, come on, do you really need the Anthony Smith comments? Things of that nature. Talk all the trash you want to. Who was it?
Keep it out of the paper.
Yeah. Back it up with your play on the field. If you want to, if you're out there making plays and you're backing it up, I am fine with that. Who was when Juju said, was it Jalen Ramsey that he said, man, he was using words I'd never heard before?
Yeah.
Something of that nature. But you know what Ramsey does? He backs up with his play on the field. It's all on the field. And I'm not saying that it can't ever spread off, but if you're going to talk a big game, play a big game. Play the big game. Let your play speak for itself first. And then if you want to then any words that you say, it's all backed up. That's just what I prefer to see. But those wide receivers, man, they can be a little bit different. They're kind of as me being a track guy, they're kind of like the distance runners. Got to be a little bit crazy to do that. And that's kind of how it almost is with the wide receivers to do what they do. Sometimes you gotta be a little bit different to pull it off.
Go ahead, Brian. You want to say something?
I know you can't do this, but I would love to go to Isaiah Loudermilk and say, hey, could we have 92? Because this is just our offensive version of Debo. Because James Harrison, he would talk so much stuff that other people would be like, what is this guy saying? But they were scared of him just because of his mouth. But he also reminds me of the guy that is going to go out to the club or the bar wearing his own jersey. I can see that. And
He's gonna wear the hood.
He'll have the hood and the jersey.
You'll see George Pickens wearing a hood in downtown. Just stay out of Tequila Cowboy.
So
go ahead, Dave.
Can I chime in with one more thing?
Sure.
All that's good and grand as long as you're being a good teammate. You know, when you do that and you talk the talk and everything else, and your team has your back, that's a big deal. So you don't need to go out as a second round draft pick into training camp and start talking the talk to your own defense and everything else. You don't need that. Okay. Make sure your own team's got your back based on how good of a player you are. Then you can do stuff like that, and they got it. That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm trying to think of the receiver for the Steelers that came into the league. And I want to say it might have been Mike Wallace. If it wasn't Mike Wallace, it might have been Emmanuel Sanders or someone like that. And they talked about how Hines Ward was trying to tell them about the physicality of the NFL, especially in the AFC North. And it was, correct me if, come on, guys, the cornerback for the Ravens, McAllister, I think was his last name. What was his
Chris
first
McAllister.
name? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this receiver, like I said, I think it was Mike Wallace, talked about the first time he went up against him, and he literally got punched in the mouth. And he just didn't know what to do. Like, he was not used to that physicality, that press man coverage. And that's what a lot of people talk about with these rookie receivers. Can they beat press man coverage? Can they get off the line of scrimmage? I'm not worried about George Pickens getting off the line of scrimmage. Have you seen the videos where he is literally calling his shot, telling the people to be quiet, goes off the ball, shoves the defensive back 5 yards on his back, and then is just standing there? This guy is physical. I love that. I love the edge. I love the physicality. The Steelers offense as a whole has been missing this for a very long time, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You have to go back to the Vontaze Burfict days when I would watch David DeCastro, who was kind of a mild-mannered guy. When he got fired up, or when you saw Heath Miller get fired up, you knew things were getting heated. This guy's going to bring that every week, and I love that. That's why Steeler fans love Joey Porter. Joey Porter hated everyone because you were opposite him. It didn't matter if he was friends with you. It didn't matter if he went to college with you. He hated you because you were on the other side of the field. Some people think that things have gotten a little too kumbaya in the NFL. I think George Pickens is going to be like a little bit of a throwback in that regard. I like it. He's a character. Bring it on. Dave, go ahead.
It's exactly like this. Do it with your play. Perfect example. In college, Kevin Dotson telling the defenders where the ball's coming and saying, I'm going to beat you anyway and make it happen. You know, that kind of deal. That's what I want to see from him.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, let's get to the last one here that I want to talk about. We talked about the small hands, the carny hands, smells like cabbage, Kenny Pickett. We talked about the character and George Pickens. Now let's talk about the bloodlines. You know, a lot of people, I felt like when they selected Conor Hayward in the 6th round, if there was somehow you could visualize a collective eye roll from the Steelers fan base, that's what you would have seen, because a lot of people are like, oh, here we go. It's another brother. Man, we have 4 sets of brothers on the team. This is exactly what we need. And I had known, thanks to Brian Baldy from the NFL Network, he always does, if you follow him on Twitter, it's a great account to follow. He always does these little snippets of players, and after big games, he'll do stuff on the Steelers if they have a big win. And he had done one on Conor Hayward, and it was all about how this guy does everything. He runs the ball like a tailback. He's a fullback. He's an H-back. He's a tight end. I'm thinking, this guy can play. And so now, you know, everyone's thinking, well, he was just picked because he's Cam's younger brother. I'm going to tell everyone that's listening right now live on Thursday night, and if you're listening to this on Friday morning on the audio side, you need to go to BehindTheSteelCurtain.com at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and you need to look at KT Smith's film room that is all about Calvin Austin III and Conor Hayward being the final pieces of the Matt Canada puzzle. You will see why they drafted this kid, and it has nothing to do with Cam being his older brother. This guy returned kicks in college. He has film of it. You can see it. It's insane. But Brian, when you heard Conor Hayward was the pick in the 6th round, were you one of those that eye rolled, or were you like, I want to see what this guy can do?
Absolutely not. I really wasn't. If you go back to 2011 and when the Steelers picked Cam Hayward with the 31st pick in that draft, my thought was, wow, they just picked Ironhead's kid. If he's got the moxie and if he's anything like that guy, you know you're going to get toughness. And we found it. It took maybe a year or two to find it. It took a little bit of a while, but it came out. So when Conor Hayward was drafted, I didn't think of him as Cam's brother. I thought of him as Craig's son, Ironhead's son. So, I just thought of him as this really tough guy coming out there. And the versatility is really attractive to me. Matt Canada wants an H-back. And I'm stealing this from Kevin Smith because I just got off recording tomorrow's show where he talks about this just like the article. So when you're done reading the article, it's better to listen to it too. So listen to Kevin elaborate on tomorrow's Here We Go, the Steelers show, 12 noon, anywhere you download your favorite podcast. So I've thought this guy, you could give him the ball at the 1 yard line. I keep thinking of Frank Wycheck. Frank Wycheck was the ultimate H-back for the Tennessee Titans, or was he with the Oilers or with both way back in the late 90s, early 2000s? And he was a guy that did a lot of damage. He was never your superstar, but that's what Conor Hayward seems to be for me. Now, the fact that he comes to the Steelers and he's got a guide there to help him along, that makes it even better. He's got his big brother there, but he doesn't need him. But that the bottom line of the whole thing, Jeff, Dave, they don't have to appease Cam Hayward. Cam Hayward's a Steeler for life right now. They don't have to do this to make him happy. They did it because they found the weapon that works in his offense. And if you listen to Kevin Smith or read that, I haven't read the article, but if you listen to Kevin Smith, he will go ahead and quote who that player was for Pitt that scored 15 touchdowns in that role, which is amazing to me. I didn't know the guy existed.
Yeah. And this is a good segue here. Sean Manahan gives us $5. Thank you for the tip, Sean. He says, I started watching the 2016 game, Pitt at Clemson. Really good look at what Canada offense can look like with the right people. Again, Kevin Smith both probably talks about this. Also, in his article, he references this. He gives video of what this looked like then, how this could look in the Steelers scheme with these new draft picks. Make sure you check that out. Dave, what are your thoughts on the Conor Hayward pick?
He is kind of that hybrid player, but I kind of think of another player, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, he's not as big. He's not. He's about 40 pounds lighter right now. That was a 7th round draft pick of the Steelers back in 2009. Someone who played some tight end, someone who played some fullback. Who am I talking about there, Bad? Is it escape? I'm putting on the spot right now. What's that?
The Tank Summers?
No, I am talking about one, David Johnson.
Oh, okay.
If you remember, he was that player that they kind of used in either role. Didn't bust into using him all the time. And I mean, he played 4 years in Pittsburgh, and then he left for 2 years, and then came back for another year. He only had one career touchdown, but he was someone that could do both roles with that. So, and you think about it, that last year, I'm pretty sure it was that last year that he was with the Steelers. That is when they technically had him as a fullback. That he was where they actually had 2 fullbacks on the roster with him and Rosie Nix. So when you have someone that can do multiple things like that and you can change it up, I just want to see how they use him. And I think they have a plan. You're not going to draft him in the 6th round if you don't have a plan of where a player like that will make sense. Now, do I think they need to start scheming everything around him? No, I don't think that's what they're saying. But if there's certain things you'd like to do and say, we don't have the right kind of player to do this, and oh, wow, there's someone that can, let's get him.
Yeah, and he's a 6th round draft pick. The more you can do. This year it might just be a special teams guy. Next year it might elaborate into more. We'll see. But when Mike Tomlin said he's a Swiss Army knife, he literally meant it. This guy can do a lot of different things for sure. Mm-hmm. So, all right, we talked about our small hands. We talked about our characters. We talked about our bloodlines. Do we have trivia from both of you tonight, or just Dave?
Oh, I have trivia about him. Oh, Brian's got cards.
Oh, he's got breaking out the cards. All right.
Got the cards. We haven't had the cards for a while.
Let's do the cards first, and then we will go to Dave for his trivia too.
All right. This man set an unofficial Clemson record with a 1,220-pound lift on a leg sled.
Levon Kirkland.
Kirkland is who I'm going to go with.
He's Clemson, but he is not this guy.
Okay. Oh,
Returned to Pittsburgh as a coaching intern from 2010 to 2012.
Coaching intern. Sorry, I'm crying. The Penguins just surrendered a goal, so I'm in mourning. Intern 10 to 12.
Started 13 regular season games and 2 playoff games as a rookie in 1994. And I believe he was the second round draft pick.
Second round draft pick of 1994. Hold on. Out of Auburn?
No, Clemson.
Clemson. Wrong one. Switched it.
They haven't drafted a lot of Clemson guys.
Oh, I can't remember his name.
That's the problem. He's a name that you don't remember.
I can tell you. I can tell you his position. He's a defensive lineman.
He is?
From Auburn. I keep saying Auburn. From Clemson. I always get those schools. Oh, what was his name? Because he came back. It was with his. He coaches in the NFL now. Is he coaching like Arizona or something? Or Detroit? What's his name?
He played for the Bengals,
Brenston
49ers, and
Brenston
Panthers.
Buckner.
Yes, Brenston Buckner.
Yeah.
So he had 3 seasons in Pittsburgh. He was tough. Definitely.
I think he's still coaching, isn't he?
He had a great career in the NFL, mostly with Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
There you go. That's good.
Well,
You
that
have
was a
another
good
one?
Yeah, I'll give you another
sorry.
one. It's probably a whole lot easier. Standout running back and linebacker who earned 1989 Michigan Player of the Year honors after his senior year at Mackenzie High School.
89 Michigan. You said, okay, say that one more time.
Standout running back and linebacker.
Running back, okay.
Who earned
and linebacker.
1989 Michigan Player of the Year honors after his senior year at Mackenzie High School.
I've got nothing yet.
As a sophomore for this college, set a single season record with 20 touchdowns.
So I'm thinking he's a receiver. If you said receiver and linebacker, but he's scoring touchdowns.
I said running back, actually.
Oh, you said running back. Oh shoot. What am I thinking? I'm trying to think of a running back that would have been from Michigan. I don't got it.
Named NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year in 1993, NFL Comeback Player of the Year in 1996, and Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year in 2001.
You say Rookie of the Year in 96? No, 93.
93.
And Comeback Player of the Year.
In his first season after being traded to Pittsburgh, this Notre Damer.
Oh, my goodness. How did we miss that?
31 yards.
How did we miss that, Jeff?
I didn't know that the boss was the Walter Payton Man of the Year.
Yeah, he was. Now that I think of it.
I
I don't know.
remember a Walter
I'm
Payton
sorry.
Man.
I was so stuck into. You said Michigan and high school in 89, and I was thinking about, that would have made him drafted around 94, 93, and I was thinking of Steelers draft picks.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wasn't thinking about potential trades. So that was a good one. That was
a tricky one. That was a tricky one.
I took Notre Dame out of the.
You took Notre Dame
out of the 4.1 of the second question.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, David.
Okay. Well, this is building a little bit more on if you listen to my Stat Geek. So Jeff probably has an advantage right now. No, I'm just messing with you, Brian. I was talking about the quarterback position and everything that was going on there, and I mentioned in that the Steelers, according to Pro Football Reference and the positions that they put players out when they're drafted, that the Pittsburgh Steelers have now, after 2022, drafted exactly 50 quarterbacks in their history. And I said about how there was 6 of them drafted from Pitt. Kenny Pickett's now the 6th quarterback drafted from Pitt, and only players. That's in the only other college where the Steelers, drafting quarterbacks. The most after that was 2. There was a bunch of them that had 2. Now, it's really tough when you go back really, really far. So then I started to look at stuff since the merger. Well, one, I always got to slow down to say his name or I'm going to mess up. Chris Oladoku was the 25th quarterback drafted by the Steelers since the 1970s merger. there was still 3 quarterbacks picked from Pitt since the merger. There are 2 other colleges since 1970 that the Steelers have drafted 2 different quarterbacks from. What are those 2 colleges?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask for the Pitt quarterbacks that they drafted.
Oh, I said them in my podcast. So if you listen to it, you would know.
It's not like I would have remembered them.
I would have known it anyway.
They were no-name. They were no-name guys. It's not like you're like, oh, of
Greg
course.
Tricano and Alex Van Pelt aren't no-name guys.
But Brian, if you would hear that in my Stat Geek article, if Kenny Pickett takes a regular season snap for the Steelers, yes, they have drafted more quarterbacks out of Pitt, but he would be the first one to ever take a regular season snap for the Steelers. None of the other ones ever played for the Steelers.
All right, so
back to the question. Since the merger, since 70, there are 2 different colleges where the Steelers have drafted 2 different quarterbacks from that college. Can you name the 2 colleges?
This is a fantastic question. Malone came from Arizona State. O'Donnell came from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Van Pelt came from Pitt, and we know Tricano came from Pitt. So, Omar Jacobs came from Bowling Green. God, did they have another one from Colorado? No, Cordell came from Colorado. Jeff, help me out here.
Just
no clue.
Come on, Jeff. You should be able to get one of these 2.
Okay, if Jeff should be able to get one of these 2, then
I was hoping you would get the other.
Both.
Would it be, Jim Miller was from Michigan State.
I will tell you this. Michigan State would have been one of the ones that had 2 if I went all time and not just since 70. There was someone else from Michigan State prior to 70, but only one since 70. What I could do, if we need a hint, I could tell you the year they were drafted.
If you tell me the year they were drafted, I think we can get there.
Okay. Well, one of the more difficult one is where it was players drafted in 1976 and 2003, both from the same college.
And they're quarterbacks. Boston College.
That would be Boston College.
Mike
Kruzak and Bryan St. Pierre. Yes, both from Boston College. The other one, the right answer's already been in the live chat if you cheat. Good job, Wes. And that was from the year 2000 and 2017. That's the one I thought Jeff would get.
I see what Wes says. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that are thinking Joe Gilliam from Tennessee, he's not. He was from Middle Tennessee State, I believe.
Yeah.
So Josh Dobbs and T. Martin.
That is correct.
And
both from Tennessee.
And remember, Kevin Colbert's going to say they're going to put it on my tombstone. Drafted T. Martin over Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you listen to my go back, if you're wondering, anyone that's listening now and you want to hear from Stat Geek, what it was I was asked the question of any time NFL teams drafted 2 quarterbacks in the same drafts. And I looked at the Steelers drafting multiple quarterbacks in their history, but then I looked at the NFL since 94 when they went down to 7 rounds. It was some pretty interesting stuff. I thought it was fun to look it up, but it took a long time. But I thought it was fun information.
One of the most recent ones I remember is Washington.
Yes.
Taking RG3 and Kirk Cousins.
That was the most recent one. So it hadn't happened in 10 years, but that happened twice in that draft. 2 teams took 2 quarterbacks. You'll have to listen to the Stat Geek and get the answer.
I will. I'm still on Let's Ride from Monday. So
the Colts.
Yeah. Jeff remembers it, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the Colts sandwiched the draft. They had the number 1 overall pick as a quarterback, and they picked Mr. Irrelevant as a quarterback. Yeah, good stuff. So, but there's still a lot more to
Yeah.
you can get into from that show.
But
So
make sure you check out Dave Stat Geek. When you hear us talk about like Bad Language, Let's Ride, these are shows that are only on our audio platform. You can find our audio platform anywhere where you get your podcast by just searching Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. I think we're everywhere where you get podcasts, and you can follow us, subscribe, whatever you have to do. Do want to give a big shout out to someone. This is kind of, I guess we'll do my final thoughts. He was in the live chat. I'm not sure if he still is. Mr. Jerry Cherry Band. If you listen to our audio side, every single song that you hear leading into a show, at the mid break, or at the end of the show, he has been generous enough to let us use his music. He has sent me songs, MP3s. We've debuted songs. Dave Stat Geek's song is a song that he debuted it was about a year ago, I guess, maybe a little bit less than that. But I just want to give him a shout out. If you're on YouTube, follow his YouTube channel. Just search the Jerry Cherry Band. Does some great guitar tutorials if you're someone that dabbles in that. So just want to take the time to thank him because I don't do it enough. He is generous enough to let us use his music. So thank you very much, Jerry. We appreciate it. All right, let's do some final thoughts. Brian, you're up. Go ahead.
Final thoughts. My daughter loves the Jerry Cherry Band now because she sings along with it when I'm producing shows. She knows lyrics. So yeah, definitely. I'm glad you said that, Jeff. Great stuff. When you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers draft and you think about the guys that they took, you're going to think, hey, they could have got him around later. They could have got him here. They didn't have to pick him until the 5th round because nobody else went. Just keep in mind that when the Steelers picked Kenny Pickett, they took him off the board. So you don't know when Kenny Pickett was going to go. Somebody would have said, oh, Pickett's still there. I'm going to trade back. Didn't that happen with Lamar Jackson when he was still there? The Ravens traded back in the round to get him. The same thing happened with the Minnesota Vikings trading up to get back into the 1st round with the last pick of that draft to get Teddy Bridgewater. So when that happens, when you say, hey, you took a guy too early, the Steelers know when they want to take a guy. The reason they took Conor Hayward in the 6th round when you thought they could have gotten him in the 7th, that's because somebody else could have taken him and they decided he's on my shopping list. We're going to take him. Think about this. I talk about Dave Schofield all the time when he says the 7th round pick is the guy that you just want to protect from not going to another team in free agency. So that's kind of what the Steelers do here. They know who they want. And I also talk about Dave Schofield when I go back to 2019 and we give him heck all the time for the Deontay Johnson thing. But the thing is, Deontay Johnson was not going to be around. So that's why they make the decisions when they do. They have guys that they want. You knew, a lot of people knew that they were going to take George Pickens in the 2nd round over Sky Moore, Shannon White, because they paid a lot of attention to him at that Georgia Pro Day. Even with all those defensive linemen around, they were talking mostly to George Pickens. Wasn't Mike Tomlin covering him on routes? He was. So they knew who they wanted, and they knew who they were going to take. And what we say in mock drafts, that doesn't influence the Steelers.
All right, Dave, final thoughts.
Yeah, my final thoughts are that we're going to be really excited about this, about seeing these players get out there for the preseason and play the games. You know what's going to be, make it really amp it up, is a week from now when we're sitting here going through the Steelers 2022 schedule. Oh my goodness. You take
17-0, baby.
You take those new draft picks and the undrafted free agents, whether you like them or not, Andrew. I know I saw you in the live chat. You take all those new players, all the free agents, the players they brought back, everything that they have. Then you actually think about, wow, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be at, can we say it's Heinz Field at their home stadium in week X to play this team at this time and start putting it together and seeing the bye week. And the next season becomes so much more of a reality, even though we know the matchups. But when you know when they're scheduled and everything, it's just a whole different ball game. As excited as I was about the draft, then I get even more excited when you stack the schedule release on top of it. I kind of like that they've now switched it to where they do the release after the draft. It just builds, and man, I'm ready to go. Can't wait till next week.
it builds, and then it goes right into mini camp, and then you have that
You get
lull.
nothing.
You just have that one lull, the month of June and some of July, where there's nothing. But the NFL knows how to build it up for sure. All right, gentlemen, great show. I thought this was a good one. We'll be back next week to debut that schedule. It's going to be the timing might be different, folks. So it depends on when the NFL is going to release it. We'll dictate when the show will be. We'll do our best to put it out on Twitter. So make sure you follow us at BT Steel Curtain, and we'll get that out there for everyone. But Dave, as always, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
All right, good show. We'll see you next week. Take it easy.